And so as a result, landlords have had to increase incentives to entice prospective tenants. What are you seeing out there? Like, can you give any crazy examples of what we're seeing out there? And also too, as a follow up, are these incentives here to stay?
That's a great question. So yeah, incentives have been a hot topic throughout 2020. As a renter, it's really been a renter's market. You're basically able to, in Calgary, especially in the Beltline, you're able to basically just hop between building to building and negotiate with all of the landlords and the property managers to get the best rent and the best incentive, because they all have vacancy. So it is very competitive. So the incentives that we've been seeing in Calgary and Edmonton throughout 2020 were aggressively 2 to 3 months free rent on a 12-month lease. So we also track net rents at Urban Analytics. So we do factor those rents into our research, we factor those incentives into our
Sure.
rental rate research. So the rents that we report on are those net rents. So that's why we really did see those decreases, is because the incentives were factored in. So when you're putting in 2 to 3 months free rent, it really does. It takes, a $1,400 unit down to almost $1,000 a month unit. And we are still seeing that in Calgary's market, with these really low rents. And it's not just the new buildings that are launching, 250 plus units that are trying to get that absorption. They're trying to get renters in the door. We're seeing buildings that have been fully stabilized since 2017, 2018, offering incentives as well on their turned over older units. They're having to remain competitive. So we're seeing these incentives across the board. It's not specific buildings. It's basically almost every building, especially in areas where we have seen quite a bit of new supply come on. So the downtown cores of both Edmonton and Calgary are all the buildings are offering incentives. And then we've also seen this kind of have an effect on the inner submarket areas as well. So buildings that are, wouldn't be, you couldn't walk to your office if we were working from our offices. These
Right.
buildings are, transit oriented, but still a good 10-minute drive from the
Mhm.
downtown core. They're actually competing with those downtown core buildings because of the aggressive incentives that those downtown buildings are offering. So they're finding, when they originally launched these buildings, that they were only competing with suburban locations, and now they're competing with these high-rise, amenity-rich buildings. So it has made the entire market very competitive. So the majority of incentives we've seen are those rental rate incentives, so offering a few months free. We also have seen free parking for maybe 6 months or maybe the year, or just reduced parking rents. And then also, obviously, the TELUS incentive is always offered all the time. I wouldn't say nothing too creative though. Like, it's all basically, all the developers are just offering that rental rate incentive for the most part, as lots of renters are either coming out of university, they lost their job, and it really is the budget for them. They're very budget oriented. So if you're throwing in, more creative incentives that might not stick with the market in Calgary and Edmonton, because our biggest struggle is that a lot of these people renting don't have jobs, took a salary cut, have job loss risk. And so they're really looking just for the bottom line, trying to get that monthly rental rate down. So that's what the developers are offering for them right now.
Sure. So speaking of creative incentives, Paul, I'm going to direct this one to you. I recall when we had our prep call, you mentioned that there was some interesting ones that you've seen. Do you want to kind of speak to those?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of the same incentives that Andie talked about, but recently they're getting a little more creative. Besides cashback and free utilities and free Wi-Fi and all that, there's a landlord in Montreal offering a lifetime experience of, like, plus the 2 months rent, you would get a tandem skydive experience or a free helicopter ride. And that was in Montreal. In Toronto, they're offering a free, fully stocked wine fridge. I think I'm up for that one.